Practitioners recite the Buddha's name daily, their hearts continuously aspiring, yet they have never seen the Buddha manifest in this lifetime. What is the profound mystery behind this? The Buddha's name we vocalize and the Buddha's image we visualize in our minds, are they real or illusory? This age-old question has troubled countless devoted followers. Ordinary practitioners who seek the Buddha often bow with their hearts, hoping for a response. But those who have attained great enlightenment tell us that reciting the Buddha's name and the Buddha are originally one entity, wondrous and beyond words. When the eminent Tang dynasty monk Yongming Yinshou solemnly confronted this issue, he merely smiled while holding up a flower, revealing the subtle and ineffable relationship between seeking the Buddha and seeing the Buddha. A thought-provoking dialogue recorded in the Zongjing Lu states, "Why do we not see the Buddha appear despite reciting his name daily? Whom are we truly seeking?" Master Yongming Yinshou solemnly responded, "Is there ever any separation between the one reciting the Buddha's name and the Buddha? Like the finger pointing to the moon is not the finger, nor is the finger the moon. Yet without the finger, one cannot see the moon." From ancient times to the present, from the eastern lands to the western regions, from Pure Land to Zen, all truly accomplished patriarchs and venerable masters have invariably been deeply moved by the profound relationship between inwardly reciting the Buddha's name and directly perceiving the Buddha. Today, we will reveal the ultimate truth of the practice of mindfulness of the Buddha and explore how the ancient sages understood the Buddha we daily invoke in prayer, yet do not perceive manifesting before us. An autumn day in Jiangnan, following the rain and clearing skies. Within Lingyan Mountain Temple in Suzhou, water drips from the rocks at the mountain's base, and incense smoke curls in the air. The young lay practitioner Jingyuan knelt before the Mahavira hall, wholeheartedly focused on reciting the Buddha's name, with the sound uninterrupted and resonant, continuing steadily for 3 full hours. Namo Amitabha Buddha, Namo Amitabha Buddha. His voice gradually changed from loud and clear to hoarse, sweat beads dripping from his forehead onto the bluestone slabs, producing a faint sound as the surrounding wind blew. Just as Jingyuan recited with a parched mouth and dry tongue, an old monk slowly walked over from the side hall, holding his staff, and stood beside him. "It is shown that you have been continuously mindful of the Buddha for 3 hours. It would be better to rest for a while to avoid depleting your vital energy." The old monk's voice was gentle, with a tone tinged with a hint of concern. Jingyuan looked up and saw that the old monk had a lean face, eyebrows sharp as blades, eyes bright and penetrating, and an aura steady and firm like a mountain. The 6 rings on his staff reflected the setting sun, radiating a golden glow. "Master, your disciple dares not be negligent." Jingyuan wiped the sweat from his brow, his voice weary yet resolute. Samantabhadra Bodhisattva's 10 great vows culminate in the Pure Land. Disciples vow to diligently practice the samadhi of mindfulness of the Buddha exclusively, without interruption, until they attain a direct vision of the Buddha. The elderly monk smiled faintly, saying that although the Dharma nature is good, cultivation lies in perseverance. If one expends too much energy, it becomes difficult to sustain in the long run. Great auspiciousness astonishes the clouds. With wholehearted concentration, nothing is left undone. If the mind is overly eager, it instead becomes an obstacle to itself. Jingyuan felt somewhat calm upon hearing this and expressed gratitude to the Buddha for his guidance. The disciple has long been troubled and restless in mind. If there are any doubts, please feel free to speak them. "Master, I am a disciple surnamed Li, Dharma named Jingyuan." The disciple has been reciting the Buddha's name continuously for 3 years without a single day of interruption. The ancient masters said, when a single thought corresponds, that thought is Buddha. When every thought corresponds, every thought is Buddha. However, no matter how diligently the disciples practiced the precepts and sought spiritual responses, they never witnessed the Buddha manifesting in person. The disciple cannot help but ask, is it that the disciple's sincerity is insufficient, or that the Buddha does not show compassion? When I recite the Buddha's name daily, ultimately, whom am I seeking? The old monk listened quietly without responding immediately, but asked, Layman Jingyuan, why do you so ardently seek to see the Buddha? Jingyuan was emotionally moved and said, Master may not know, but I lost my father at a young age and have relied on my mother ever since. 2 years ago, my mother contracted a chronic respiratory disease. Due to the negligence of the doctors, this disciple sought rebirth in the Pure Land. The mother's illness indeed improved, and the disciple naturally upheld the vow. For 3 years, I have continuously recited the name daily without interruption, yet I have never seen the auspicious incense change its seal. The old monk nodded gently after listening, acknowledging that layman Jingyuan possesses a heart of utmost sincerity, which is indeed rare. In the Contemplation of the Infinite Life Sutra, it is stated that if there are beings who wish to be born in that land and generate the 3 kinds of mind, they will be immediately born there. What are the 3? First, a most sincere mind. Both are pure faith. The 3 cultivate the mind of dedication and aspiration. When a lay practitioner possesses true sincerity, there is no need to be overly attached to the appearance of the Buddha. Jingyuan joined his palms together, and with the Buddha's clear wisdom, he said, Disciples are not coveting divine will. They are only troubled within their hearts. The scriptures say that reciting the Buddha's name can lead to seeing the Buddha. Why then, if disciples sincerely recite, do they not witness the Buddha manifesting? If the Buddha is real and true, why is this not realized? If it is due to the disciples' heavy karmic obstacles, how should one repent and purify oneself? The venerable monk, with a compassionate expression, said, Since the lay practitioner sincerely seeks the Dharma, I shall endeavor to resolve these doubts. Please follow me. 2 people walked through the vermilion lacquered corridor, entered the backyard hill, and arrived at a tranquil stone pavilion. Once the 2 had taken their seats, the old monk took out a purple clay teapot, boiled water, and brewed tea. Jingyuan carefully savored the tea. Its sweet and mellow flavor quenched his thirst. The venerable Buddha, not knowing your Dharma name, Jingyuan asked with curiosity. The elder replied calmly, My Dharma name is Zhiyuan, and I am the abbot of Lingyan Mountain Temple. Jingyuan was greatly astonished and quickly rose to pay respects. It was none other than Abbot Zhiyuan. The maid has been disrespectful. Abbot Zhiyuan said with empty hands, Monks do not adhere to their native places. The 4 elements are all empty, so where comes hierarchy and distinction? Our meeting is also a pure and fundamental karmic connection. Jingyuan respectfully inquired, Abbot, please kindly enlighten me. Despite reciting the Buddha's name for many years, why have I not yet witnessed the Buddha manifesting? The Buddha name we recite daily, who exactly is it? Abbot Zhiyuan did not answer directly. Instead, he pointed to the pond outside the pavilion and said, Everything should be seen in the reflections in that water. Jingyuan followed the abbot's pointed finger and saw the pond's clear water reflecting the blue sky and white clouds, the outline of the pavilion, and the silhouettes of the 2 people. Everything appeared vividly in succession, yet seemed both real and illusory. Jingyuan, tell me, does the reflection in the water truly exist? The abbot inquired. Jingyuan pondered for a moment. If said to be real, it is but an illusion. If said to be unreal, it remains clearly visible. So, does holding water with intention reflect all things? Water is without intention, manifesting in accordance with conditions. If there is no water held, would there still be a reflection? Certainly not. If there are no external objects, would the water still reflect an image? Nor will it. Venerable Zhiyuan's abbot slightly sweated on his hands. You have observed very carefully. The relationship between reciting the Buddha's name and seeing the Buddha is subtle and profound, not something that can be explained in just a few words. He pondered for a moment and then asked, In your heart, What is the Buddha like? Li Jingyuan replied, according to the Contemplation Sutra on Amitabha Buddha, Guan Wuliang Shijing, Amitabha Buddha's body is golden in color, standing 60 trillion udas tall, vast as an ocean of sands extending horizontally. The white tuft of hair between his eyebrows curls and spirals gracefully, resembling the 5 Sumera mountains. His eyes are like the waters of the 4 great seas, clear and bright, pure and distinct. His other features are solemn and magnificent, immeasurable and boundless. If that is the case, the Buddha's body is vast and boundless. How can you perceive it with the naked eye? The Diamond Sutra states, if one perceives the self through form, or seeks the self by sound, such a person walks the wrong path. You cannot see the Tathagata. If you cling to perceiving the Buddha's form and hearing the Buddha's voice, does this not contradict the essential meaning? Li Jingyuan was caught off guard, bowed his head in silence, his face showing signs of shame. The abbot of the volunteer monastery speaks in a gentle tone, advising not to be self-critical. Your confusion has been faced by the ancestral masters throughout the ages. Those who recite the Buddha's name share an indescribably subtle relationship with the Buddha they contemplate, akin to the relationship between water and the moon. The water does not ascend to the moon, nor does the moon descend into the water, yet the moon's reflection gracefully rests within the water. If the minds of sentient beings are pure and tranquil without disturbance, the Buddha's moon naturally manifests. The issue does not lie in whether the Buddha manifests, but in whether one can realize the inconceivable relationship between the reciter of the Buddha's name and the Buddha. The volunteer abbot's spirit, Li Jingyuan, came to the mountainside viewing platform. Gazing afar at the verdant mountains and the rolling sea of clouds, he sincerely wished, when you recite the Buddha's name, who is it that you are truly calling upon? Who is the one being recited upon? Li Jingyuan pondered for a moment. The one who can recite is me, and the name recited is Amitabha Buddha. This statement is mistaken. Master Zhiyuan slightly shook his head. The treatise on the awakening of faith in the Mahayana states, all dharmas, from the very beginning, are free from verbal designation, free from nominal designation, free from mental conditioning, ultimately equal in essence, without change or variation, and indestructible. If one clings to the mind that holds the capacity to think, the Buddha being thought of falls into dualistic opposition, contradicting the path of Buddhahood. It pointed to the distant sea of clouds, vast and boundless, neither this nor that, indescribable and inconceivable. Buddha nature is likewise pervading the Dharma realm, without any distinction. You, I, and the Buddha are fundamentally one. Only through deluded thoughts and attachments do distinctions arise. The special significance of the practice of Buddha recitation lies in gradually dissolving dualistic attachments through reciting the Buddha's name, thereby returning to the innate Buddha nature. Therefore, Li Jingyuan suddenly realized that the reason he did not see the Buddha manifest when reciting the Buddha's name was because he regarded the Buddha as something external rather than as his inherent nature within. This is precisely the principle. With the support of Abbot's approving nod, Master Shandao of the Tang dynasty said in his 4 annotations on the Contemplation Sutra that the name of Amitabha is inconceivable. It enables all beings who recall it to be free from sin, without the use of skillful means, naturally opening their hearts. The true meaning of reciting the Buddha's name is not to seek the Buddha externally, but to turn inward and recognize the Buddha nature inherent within ourselves. The aspiring abbot took a mala of Bodhi seeds from the embroidery and handed it to Li Jingyuan. This string of prayer beads was received from my venerable teacher many years ago. Using it to recite the Buddha's name can help you focus your mind wholeheartedly. But remember, the true mala is not in the hand, but in the heart. Each bead represents a pure thought. The continuous flow of such thoughts constitutes the samadhi of mindful Buddha recitation. Li Jingyuan respectfully accepted the prayer beads and asked, "Venerable Abbot, I have one more question. Since the Buddha nature is inherently present, why is it still necessary to recite the Buddha's name? Isn't directly realizing one's true nature sufficient? May the Abbot point to the monks walking at the foot of the mountain. Why do those monks have to walk to reach their destination? Although the destination truly exists, if one does not take a step forward, how can one arrive? Buddha nature, although originally inherent, has been obscured by delusions and habitual afflictions since beginningless time. Through the skillful means of reciting the Buddha's name, these impediments can be gradually eliminated, allowing the true mind to be revealed. The renowned master Yinsho in the Zongjing Lu proposed the 4 understandings of mindfulness of the Buddha. Master Zhiyuan, the abbot, summarized its 4 principles. First, there is both Chan and pure land, like a tiger with legs. In this life, one is a teacher to people, and in the next life, one becomes a Buddha. 2. Without pure land, there is Chan. People have long been misled. Because stillness appears present, they mistakenly follow others instead. 3. Even without meditation, there's the pure land. Among tens of thousands of practitioners, if one attains the vision of Amitabha, why worry about not achieving enlightenment? 4. Without Zen and without pure land, even the iron bed is shared. Throughout countless kalpas and thousands of lives, there is no one to rely on or protect. Jingyuan listened attentively to the abbot's detailed explanation of the 4 alliances. Master Zhiyuan explained that these 4 lines of verses illustrate the relationship between Zen and Pure Land. Zen Buddhism points directly to the original mind, realizing one's true nature to attain Buddhahood, while Pure Land Buddhism focuses exclusively on the practice of reciting the Buddha's name to be reborn in the Western Pure Land. Though seemingly different, the 2 ultimately converge upon the same path. The 3rd sentence explicitly states that if one can diligently practice Pure Land recitation, they will assuredly be reborn in the Pure Land, and upon seeing the Buddha, will naturally attain enlightenment. Therefore, reciting the Buddha's name is not an external seeking, but rather an external expedient means that guides us to return to our inherent Buddha nature within. He took out a piece of yellow paper from his bosom. It contained the 3 contemplations of one mind practice of Buddha recitation. This method I created is based on the one mind, 3 contemplations of the Tiantai school and the Buddha recitation Dharma gate of the Pure Land school. This teaching is divided into 3 levels of insight: emptiness view, provisional view, and middle view. By understanding and practicing these, one can attain the highest realm of mindfulness of the Buddha. The essence of this practice lies in observing the harmonious integration of the 3 truths during the recitation of the Buddha's name. Master Zhiyuan explains that through the emptiness contemplation of Nianfo, Buddha recitation, one realizes that the mind that recites and the Buddha being recited are both empty and unattainable. The practiced visualization of the Buddha, though knowing all is emptiness, still focuses exclusively on the Buddha's name, maintaining an undistracted mind. In the Madhyamaka practice of mindful recollection of the Buddha, Nianfo, emptiness and existence mutually negate each other. It is neither emptiness nor existence, simultaneously empty and existent. This leads to the state of mindfulness without mind and mind without mindfulness. By practicing in this way, one can establish a responsive connection with the Buddha. Jingyuan listened attentively, his brow gradually furrowing. Abbot, these 3 levels of contemplation methods seem very profound. I fear that I, your disciple, may find them difficult to master. The aspiration of the abbot may be modest, but cultivation is like climbing a mountain, progressing step by step. Beginners can start by focusing on the Adam's apple, laryngeal prominence, concentrating solely on reciting the Buddha's name with an undistracted mind. In time, one can gradually enter the realms of emptiness and the middle gate. The Amitabha Sutra states, if one concentrates their mind without distraction for 1 day, or 2 days, up to 7 days continuously, Single-minded concentration without distraction is the samadhi of reciting the Buddha's name and the key to resonating with the Buddha. Then why do some people, despite reciting the Buddha's name for many years, still find it difficult to receive spiritual response? The voluntary abbot pondered for a moment. First, reciting the Buddha's name may not always be done with exclusive focus. The mouth may chant while the mind is distracted. Both, being attached to the perception of the Buddha's form, instead become obstacles. The three have an insufficient understanding of the Buddha and have not truly corresponded with the Buddha. Bodhisattva Nagarjuna explains in the Mahaprajnaparamita that faith is the capacity to enter and wisdom is the capacity to liberate. In reciting the Buddha's name, beyond faith, the guidance of wisdom is also necessary. The disciple understands, paying reverent homage to Yuen Ra, who has attained some enlightenment. Previously, when I practiced reciting the Buddha's name, I was overly attached to perceiving the Buddha's form, thereby neglecting the Buddha nature inherently present within my own mind. From now on, begin with the self-mind, continuously turning inward in contemplation. Only then can one harmonize with the Buddha. The Venerable Abbot nods with satisfaction, pleased that you have met his approval. The greatest taboo in reciting the Buddha's name is attachment to form. When you no longer cling to the image of seeing the Buddha, it becomes easier to resonate with the Buddha. Li Jingyuan further asked, then what is meant by Nian Xiang Ying, moment-to-moment congruence? Correspondence of every thought does not mean that the Buddha appears each time one utters a single Buddha name, but rather that during the recitation, the mind harmonizes and accords with the Buddha without any duality or distinction. Abbot Zhiyuan explained, Master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, do not seek the Buddha far away on Vulture Peak. Vulture Peak is right here in your own heart. Everyone has a spiritual mountain pagoda within, as if cultivating beneath the spiritual mountain pagoda. The states of reciting the Buddha's name are divided into 5 levels. 1. Reciting the Buddha's name with the mouth while the mind is distracted and scattered. 2. Reciting the Buddha's name with the mouth while the mind does not wander externally. 3. The mind recites the Buddha's name silently and without form. 4. The mind and Buddha are not two, with the duality of subject and object dissolved. 5. Reciting without recitation. Without recitation, yet reciting, whether walking, standing, sitting, or lying down, all are acts of Buddha remembrance. The first 3 types involve the practice of mindfulness of the Buddha with form, while the latter 2 involve formless mindfulness of the Buddha, also known as mindfulness of the true suchness. Venerable Abbot, how can one attain the 4th and 5th stages of realization? Abbot Zhiyuan pointed to the characters on the yellow paper. Practicing the threefold contemplation of the one mind in the Buddha recitation Dharma is the path leading to the higher levels of the Buddha recitation realm. First, consistently maintain clear mindfulness of the Buddha, calming both body and mind. Then, during the recitation of the Buddha's name, reflect upon one's own mind and realize that the mind capable of recitation is originally empty. Finally, realize the non-duality of the perceiver and the perceived, reaching the state of mindfulness without attachment to the object of meditation. Master Li Jingyuan inquired, I have previously heard of reciting the Buddha's name with the true nature in mind and reciting with visualization. How are these related to the states described by the abbot? Well said, the abbot of the volunteer monastery praised. Traditionally, the Pure Land School has 4 methods of reciting the Buddha's name: clear mindfulness recitation, visualization recitation, recognition as darkness, and contemplation on the Infinite Life Sutra. The 6 contemplations involve visualizing the Buddha's majestic and perfect features. Visualization recitation means focusing on worship and offerings before the Buddha's image. Recognition recitation involves observing the characteristics of all phenomena, realizing that one's own mind is the Buddha. These 4 methods of mindful Buddha recitation. The first 3 are suitable object Buddha recitations, and the last one is disembodied Buddha recitation. Generally speaking, beginners are suitable to start with continuous mindfulness of the Buddha, gradually progressing step by step. Indeed, the teachings transmitted by the Abbot, which use the threefold contemplation of the nature as a method of mindfulness of the Buddha, combine the Tiantai three contemplations with these four methods of mindfulness of the Buddha in a wonderfully profound way. Indeed, the integrated practice of both Chan and Pure Land, with harmonious rituals, is the most perfect path of cultivation. The voluntary abbot said earnestly, Jingyuan, remember, when reciting the Buddha's name, do not seek supernatural responses, as that will become an obstacle. As long as one sincerely recites the Buddha's name with a focused and undistracted mind, everything will naturally fall into place, and one will naturally be in harmony with the Buddha. The treatise on rebirth states, if a good man or good woman cultivates and accomplishes practices of the boundless gates, they will ultimately be born into the land of bliss, and behold Amitabha Buddha. This boundless gate is the gate of prostration, the gate of praise, the gate of seated vow, the gate of contemplation, and the gate of dedication. You can practice comprehensively and must not neglect any aspect. Li Jingyuan joined his palms together and respectfully said, Disciple carefully remembers the abbot's teachings, but there is still one matter unclear. When I recite the Buddha's name, my mind is often filled with distracting thoughts, making it difficult to concentrate. How should I overcome this? Master Zhiyuan calmly replied that forgetting and thinking are habitual tendencies of sentient beings and are fundamentally normal. There are three methods of antidotes. First, do not fear the arising of forgetfulness. Only fear the absence of mindful awareness and continuous vigilance. Instantly recognize the arising of forgetfulness without following its flow. Second, replace forgetfulness with the Buddha's name. When the mind holds only the Buddha's name, there is naturally no place for forgetfulness to arise. 3. Habit of resting. Use the breath to calm the mind, gradually allowing the heart to become tranquil. The ancient masters said, the wild mind does not cease. Cessation is bodhi. As long as one perseveres in diligent practice, delusory thoughts will naturally diminish gradually. While the discourse was ongoing, the two had already returned to the monastery. The bell tolled again, signaling the time for the midday chanting. Upon reaching Master Yuan's quarters, the appointed time had arrived, and I needed to preside over the midday chanting session. You may first return to the meditation hall to rest and thoroughly contemplate what was discussed today. Remember, to recite the Buddha's name and see the Buddha is to be of one mind. The Buddha is not far away, but right within your present moment. Li Jingyuan joined his palms respectfully and bowed, expressing deep gratitude to the abbot for his compassionate teachings, from which the disciple has greatly benefited. Watching the retreating figure of Abbot Zhiyuan, Li Jingyuan felt a sudden clarity and openness in her heart. Years of confusion have finally been resolved. He understood that the reason he had not seen the Buddha manifest when reciting the Buddha's name before was precisely because he regarded the Buddha as something external, rather than as his inherent inner nature. The true meaning of reciting the Buddha's name lies not in seeking the Buddha externally, but in introspecting the mind and realizing the inherent Buddha nature within. Li Jingyuan tightly held the Bodhi seed mala in his hand and practiced the three contemplations of the mind with single-minded devotion to the Buddha, silently reciting, Namo Amichuofo, Namo Amichuofo. During this session of chanting the Buddha's name, he experienced an unprecedented sense of peace and joy. Amid the sounds of the Buddha's name, it was as if boundless light penetrated the fog of his heart. Originally, the practice of reciting the Buddha's name and the experience of seeing the Buddha are not distant from each other, but a subtle transformation within a single thought. The wondrous and limitless is the true Dharma.